let's go ahead and show that real quick. So it's on Blackboard. And I put it on down here in course content, down here towards the bottom. Project 4 right here. This is a condensed tutorial. If you watch the first 46 minutes, it'll take you through what we did last Monday, the 27th. The remaining, I think it's about 53 minutes long. The remaining 7 or 8 minutes covers the part that we're going to actually do tonight. Okay, so it goes right here. Yeah, it's about 54 minutes long, right?
Going to come.
So you go through about 46 minutes.
Drag audio, you're going to bring it down to audio.
It'll get you to that point where we were last week. Okay, it's a slightly different technique. You can see that I'm stacking the B-roll on track 2 as opposed to unlinking and trimming and all of that. So it's another way that you can do it. So find your project 4s. Here we are, spring, project 4. If you signed off around the time I did, it was about my stamp on the project is about 9/12. You may have stayed on working on it a little bit longer, so, but it would have been from, well, mine's from Monday. All right, let's jump in. Let's give everybody a chance to open that up. And I'm going to close this out. This is a side. Here's my sequence. So how we did it last week, it should, if you did it the way we did it last weekend, last Monday, the way I taught you in class, it should look something like this. If you did it the way I did it on the tutorial, it's just going to look a little different. You're going to have the B-roll clips on video too. Either way is fine, as long as the end product looks the same, right? It doesn't matter how it looks in the timeline. If it's doing the exact same thing, it will still look the same. Okay, assuming you followed the directions and the script. Okay. All right, so let's go back. Let's kind of review where we're at. Okay, I'm just going to play it through for a minute. Okay. And another thing that I don't know if I did this already. I can't remember if I put it on Blackboard or not, but if I didn't, I will do it tonight. And it's just a sample of the piece, and it's got like a big text on it, like a big watermark. So you can kind of reference that to what's happening. All right. I think I already did that, but I'll make sure if it's on there. I'll make sure that it's on Blackboard before we close out tonight. So here's what we have. We have a countdown, right? It's going to go to black for a second or two, and then the piece is going to begin. So let's just take a look at it. Yeah, let me make this screen a little bigger. Okay. And I'll kind of split the difference so you can see the actual sequence in the timeline.
All I want to do is like get it with the voiceover. As a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew how to do nothing. All I knew was like pick up a camera, go shoot something, and have fun with it.
Do they still have to capture more B-roll, or they have enough?
As the years went on, I got to come in the studio, use some of the TV stuff we have. We got to use the digital cameras. We actually got to use mixers, audio boards, and stuff like that. And that actually deepened my interest in television. And then it just kept on building. In today's world, I mean, technology has expanded exponentially, and there's a lot of things you can do right now. You know, during the old days, you had to go home, watch the TV to know what the news is about, or go and read the newspaper. You know, but you know, in the near future, people are going to have news on their telephones. Well, they already do. You know, video iPods. You know, cell phone news. Pretty much everything's going to be on the internet. What I do is a team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
My backyard ends and the county connector starts.
Okay. So then they walk off.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Okay. So at this point, if that's cut to approximately what the script was, I'm going to measure that all the way till they kind of walk through the door and start going up the stairs. Your duration should be right there. My duration is at about 1 minute and 13 seconds. 13 and a half seconds. So if you're right around 1 minute and 13 seconds, you're pretty much dead on, give or take a few frames. Okay, the key thing is having your SOTS, the SOTs, the sound bites from Caleb, nice and clean, the ins and the outs. Okay, so you don't have to turn this in tonight. If you want, you can export with me tonight. If not, just get it in by next Monday, because we're going to be moving on to Project 5. So there's that overlap time, right? That you can, make sure you get it right, fix it, clean it up, etc. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do here now is, let me adjust this. Okay. Clear in and out. There's something I noticed here, which you may have not noticed, but remember, we're looking at our meters too. And I noticed right here, our audio, right, which is represented here in a very basic composite on the right, which is showing us the overall output of our timeline. And I noticed when I played this last section with the kids walking and the soundbite, I saw a little bit of red.
What I do is a team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
My backyard.
So he was a little loud there, but I think that's happening because he's okay. Caleb's voice is okay, right? Because we know Caleb's voice is always here. He's on audio 1, right? When he talks, he's on audio 1, right? Audio 1. And here he is, but we disconnected or unlinked his face, so we just have his sound. And then all the audio on audio 2 is what we call the natural sound, right? The ambient sound. Here we have the teacher giving us what we call a natural sound pop, so to speak, a little break in his narration, and then she comes in and then we drop her down, right? Here we just kind of keep the audio ambient, and then here we never really made an adjustment to it. So right here, this actually, I think right here, because we didn't drop it like this one, it's combining with what he says, and it's just a little bit too hot. Okay, so we're going to come here to this audio for this last shot, group walk long, and we're just going to drop it. We're just going to point our mouse on there, grab it, and just drop it a few dB. Sometimes you have to, there we go. Just put the tip of your pointer on there and pull it down. There you go. Okay, you might need to magnify a little bit to see that better, right? Don't get confused by this sign. This is their line here. And you should see that little white box showing you a negative dB. So I'm going to drop that down by about 10 dB. And then I'm going to play just this section to make sure I'm not getting that red over here on the meter. Okay.
What I do is a team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
It's not bad. It's still a little hot, but we'll tweak it a little bit more in a minute, because we're going to add some music to that. Okay. So actually, yeah, maybe I'll just drop that a little bit. I'm going to drop it a little bit more, maybe go down to about like 15 dB. Okay, and then we'll play that section. So I dropped that audio that goes with group walk long of the audio, the ambient sound of them walking, so that it doesn't over modulate combined with his soundbite here.
What I do is a team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
So it might be his voice. We'll tweak it in a minute because it's still showing up a little hot. Okay, I'm going to do a save. And now we're going to, yes.
I want to ask, which audio are you dropping on? Is that the last one on audio 2?
Yes, that is the very last. That is the last clip in the timeline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the last. Let me make sure everybody understands it. Let me de-magnify a little bit so you can see. Okay. See, so there's my whole timeline, right? Oops, hang on a second. Let me magnify that a little bit. Okay, so here's my whole timeline. So this is the clip I'm adjusting. It's the very last one where you see them coming down the hallway. So I'm just adjusting that sound for that clip over here on 2. I'm lowering it, right? Making it a little quieter. Okay. All right. So now we're going to bring in our music and we're going to do some of the keyframing, right? To sort of bring it up, bring it down, and then take advantage of a couple breaks where we can also bring it up loud to give us a little punctuation. Okay. All right. So that's going to be, that music clip is going to be here in this Payload updated clips, right? If you expand that folder, find that music clip, which there it is. It says 29 track 29 MP3. And if you double click it, it will open up right in your source monitor. And if you play it, the whole thing is only about a minute long. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but so you can hear that it's pretty repetitive. This is actually an example. This is some old music. This thing goes back over 20 years, but this is an example of what we would call like production music, right? This is specifically created to sort of just enhance, augment TV productions, informational shows, you name it, newscasts maybe. And it's designed to have a certain feel for different types of topics. And it's also pretty generic because you don't want anything too complex, maybe with lyrics or too many changes in the music, because you don't necessarily want to distract away from the content, right? People talking, people being interviewed, the footage. This is there as an enhancement. You hear it in commercials all the time. Sometimes I've heard stuff that I used to use when I worked at the school system in our library. I've heard it like on news shows, on commercials and TV once in a while here and there. It's pretty funny. Anyway, so this is one of those examples of this very kind of generic music that helps you sort of beef up these kinds of pieces. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this in. We're not going to do any editing up here. We're going to drop it in and we're going to bring it down, actually down on the third audio layer. So we need to make a little room here, right? I'm going to sort of reduce the size of my video track for a minute. And I'm going to reduce a little bit of the audio. So make a little room here, right? And I'm going to bring the music down here on audio 3, right? Because you get 3 automatically when you first open a sequence. Right, when you create a sequence, you get 3 video tracks and 3 audio tracks. So we don't have to add anything here. We can just drop it right in. Okay. So we'll take that music and you grab it right here. It doesn't matter where you have the playhead. We're not marking any endpoints yet. We're going to just drop it in and then position it. So we're going to bring it down and bring it down to 3 and line up the beginning of it, right with the beginning of our video. And we'll scooch it a little bit from there, but for starters, just go ahead and line it up like that. So it should be lining up right with the first video and the audio. And you can see here, this is where the music starts. So go ahead and get it in place. Right? So once you drop it in, you'll have Caleb's voice on 1, all the natural sound that goes with the B-roll, right? The footage on 2 and the music on 3. And reminding everybody that we talked about this last week, you have sort of 2 categories of footage here. You have the A-roll, right? The A-roll is Caleb, right? His sound bites, because that also links up with the sound, where his narration, his interview is really what's driving this piece, right? We don't have a voiceover, we don't have a reporter, we don't have somebody else, navigating the piece. It's first person and he's telling us the story. Countdown video from the start. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's keep going here. Okay, guys, you're asking me questions that aren't really relevant to what we're doing right this second. I'll get to those in a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and keep focusing on what we're doing here. Okay, I'll answer those questions momentarily. So we've got the music, right? So now let's go ahead and slide. I'm sorry, don't do that. Just go ahead and grab your audio, your music track, and slide it to the left so that this part that comes up lines up with the beginning of the video. Okay, you might have to just scooch it left and right. Okay, if you want, you can also just trim the very top of it since we don't need that because there's nothing happening there. Okay, so you want to, if you want to magnify that, you can see down here. Okay, right, that it's just, this is where the music comes in. So we want to have that a little bit right here, but we're also going to drop it. But we're just going to have this initial, what we call a swell, right? It's going to go like woo, and then it's going to drop because Caleb's going to start talking, right? So we don't want the music to compete with Caleb. We want to get a nice little burst at the very beginning and then drop it real quick as soon as he starts talking. Okay. So that's our first edit on the music, other than that slight little trim we just did. Okay. Right. So it should look like this, right? Your music should be lined up with the with everything else. Let me scooch this back down. Okay. Come here. Where are you? There you are. Okay. So you can see there's your first clip and there's your music, right? I'm going to slide this here. So we're going to keep this here, but you see right where this starts coming down, right? Right where this adjustment that we made on the natural sound, we're going to do the same thing on the music because Caleb starts talking right here. So we need to also, not only have we knocked that down, we're going to knock down the music. Okay. So we'll do our keyframing here on the audio. Okay. Right. We're going to add a keyframe, add a second keyframe, and then drop that second keyframe down beyond that. So it creates a little lever. Right. Okay. So if you want, you can use these keyframes as a reference. So you can ballpark position your pointer. If you want to magnify a little bit, hover your mouse so it's the tip of the mouse is pointing right on the audio track. Hold down Control or Command if you're on the Mac, right? You get that little plus under your cursor, right? Click that, you add a keyframe. Come over here. I'm still holding my Control key and click again, and I get a second keyframe. And they're pretty much lined up more or less in conjunction with these. So now you go past your second keyframe and just drop that music. Just drag it down. Let's bring it down to about 15 dB and see how that feels. Right? So now your natural sound is dropping. Your music is also dropping because Caleb is starting to talk right here. Right? All right, let me resize this a little bit so we can see all of these tracks. Okay. Hang on, that audio track is too skinny. There we go. Okay. All right, so here we come. So we're going to come, I'm going to demagnify. So here's the very opening. It should sound something like this.
All I'm going to do is get it with the, as a freshman when I came.
All right. Actually, we could probably start dropping the music a little sooner. Let's listen to it again.
All I'm going to do is get it with the, as a freshman when I came into high school, I knew.
Not terrible, but I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustment to that music. And I'm going to start this keyframe. I'm going to grab it and slide it to the left. Start it a little bit earlier. I'm going to start fading the music down a little bit earlier. Okay. And I'm keeping this part, I'm keeping it up full, but here I'm dropping it, right? So I just slid the keyframe and I'm watching. I want to still be around 0 dB on this keyframe because I'm just creating the drop sooner, but I want to keep that level up. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. So now that should be a little smoother.
All I'm going to do is get it with the As a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew how to do nothing. All I knew was like pick up a camera, go shoot something, and have fun with it.
Do they still have to?
Okay, so you can see what you want. What you want, the effect that you want here is that you want to have that little burst of music in the beginning, and then get it down to a level that's pretty comfortable so that you can hear Caleb talking while still hearing the music in the background. Okay, now I am currently accomplishing that by having, and we did this, I think, last week to Caleb's audio here. We boosted him up a little bit. So I think we're up at around maybe a 2 or 3 dB here. So we boosted him a little bit.
As a freshman, when I came into high school,
And you can see this level here. Okay, hang on one second, Rachel. Okay. And so, and here I dropped the music. So the music I've dropped down by about 15 dB. Okay. If you want to double check in the effects panel, click on your music, go to the effects panel, and you can see volume there. You can snap to that keyframe. You can see what it's set at. It's set at negative 15.2, right in there. Okay. And then if I were to click on Caleb, I can see that, let's see, I'm also going to get video, and I've turned him up a little bit. There's no keyframes because I didn't add a keyframe because I uniformly adjusted his audio. So when you uniformly adjust an audio track, uniformly meaning you raise or lower the entire track, you don't have to add keyframes. It's only when you're changing the level, right? From a higher level to a lower level that you add those keyframes and you drop it or you raise it. Okay. So yes, Rachel, question.
Can you put back?
Put back what?
Yeah, the sequence.
You mean show you more of the sequence?
No. Can you put it back? You took it off. The question is on that. There is one part that I don't have on my sequence, so I don't know. Like this part before. Oh, that's a countdown. I don't have that on mine.
Right. So
So
here,
I was about to ask you about this part before Caleb teacher shot 2. Okay.
Right. So what you're doing here is you're just adding these keyframes and you're dropping that audio that goes for Caleb because you want that to be lower before Caleb starts talking. Caleb starts talking here, right?
as a freshman,
Right. And you don't want that music you don't want this sound to be too loud because it will compete with Caleb. It will get in the way. It will distract from what Caleb is saying. So that's where we use the keyframes. Now, I'll tell you what, let me show you a different way. If you want to try it this way, here's the way that I actually showed in the tutorial. And you can do it either way. So I'm going to go ahead and undo this. I'm going to get rid of these keyframes. I can just click and delete them, by the way. So if I want to get rid of these, just watch me for a minute. Boom. Okay. All right. So now I have undone that keyframing where I dropped that audio for that first shot, that B-roll shot, right? Right. So we talked about A-roll is Caleb talking. The B-roll is all the other stuff that isn't Caleb talking directly to the camera. It's the action. It's the footage that covers up what he says, right? So we have A and B-roll, right? So this is our first B-roll shot, right? Caleb with the teacher. So instead of doing those keyframes, we can also do something like this, right? We can kind of split the difference right about here on the audio, okay? And it's ideal to unlink this when you do this. But you don't have to, but you are going to make a cut, okay? And it will cut your video, but it won't affect your video, okay? So let me show you. If you come over here and grab your razor blade, you can come over here and make a cut right there on the audio. It also makes a cut on your video, but because you're not moving anything, you're not going to notice it. Okay. The other option, let me go back to the selection tool. So I'm going in the tool palette, I'm selecting razor and selection, right? Remember, when you select any other tool here, you got to go back to the selection tool, or otherwise your pointer stays as that tool. So here, if I want to just only cut your audio, I can right click again. Remember, we did this last week. You can unlink. right? Now they're independent. Now go get your razor blade and cut only the audio down here, right where you want it, because Kayla was about to talk, but I want to start making an edit. So I'm going to cut it here, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. Let me move this out of the way. So I just made a cut. You see, now I can click on the two sides of that cut on the audio. Now we just basically put a dissolve on that cut, okay? But before we do that, then we drop the back part. So we drop this down to whatever we had, maybe 13 or 14 dB, right? So it's the same kind of idea, except instead of using the keyframes, to make that little ramp, we cut the audio. We have one side that's going to be up, the one side that's going to be down. We lower that side, and then we add a dissolve. And dissolve does the same thing as those keyframes, because it makes that adjustment. Watch. Okay. We don't do a dissolve, actually. I'm calling it a dissolve. We actually use this in effects. You're going to use an audio transition, and you're going to go to the crossfade. So this is in effects. You're going to go to audio transitions, and you're going to go into the subfolder for audio transitions that says crossfade. Open that up, and then you've got one that says constant power, right? And then you're going to grab that, and you're going to put it right there on that audio, just like you would do a dissolve on video. And now that gives you essentially the same thing as sort of knocking it down, because it's transitioning from a higher audio level to a lower audio level. Okay, so that's another way to do it. And watch, you'll hear how that works.
As a freshman, when I came into high
See, you can see how that gets lower. If I want to do the same thing on music, let's do it on the music. Okay, since I already did the keyframes, I'm going to position my playhead kind of like right in the middle, right? Right? And I'm going to grab my razor blade. Now I don't have to unlink anything with my audio because there's nothing linked to it. So I'm going to cut it here, go back. I'm going to get rid of these keyframes. So my audio goes back to where it was. Okay, actually that drops. So let me bring that back up to 0, right? So my audio is it's 0 now. It's very loud, right?
as a freshman, when I came into high
Okay, see, if I leave the music up, look what happens, right?
as a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew
Okay, I can't hear Caleb, so I got to knock it down. So now I'm going to just do that cut and I'm going to drop the second part of that music and then add a transition. Okay, so you see the difference. It's the same effect. It's just a different technique. So if the keyframing thing isn't your thing, see, so now I'm going down to the part of the music that needs to be lower while Caleb talks, right? Which is this second part. I go grab my constant power, drag it over, and just paste it right on there. So it's giving me about a 30 frame, about a 1 second transition, which is good, right? And it will still have the same effect. Let's listen to it.
all I want to do is get with the voice. As a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew how to do nothing.
You see?
As a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew how to do nothing. All I knew was
See, so it accomplishes the exact same thing. So feel free to use the keyframing, or if you'd rather do that technique, because you're like, this keyframing thing's driving me nuts, then you can cut it, drop the part that you have to drop, and then add a dissolve. And it does that automatic transition, so to speak, for you with the constant power crossfade. Okay? So that's another way to do it. That's 2 ways to do that audio. Okay? Everybody see okay how that worked? All right, I'll answer these chat questions here real quick. Is the Photoshop portion of today's lecture relevant to project 4 or more of a general knowledge thing that's good to know leading into the final project? Yes, the second part. More of a general knowledge thing that's good to know leading into the final project. For any of you who work with Photoshop and know how to use Photoshop, but you've never used it in Premiere, I'm just going to show you a simple example of how it integrates. So if you do a PSD, that you're going to work in your project, I'm going to show you how easy it is to incorporate it. Okay. And it's also part of the whole integration that Adobe's been so good at for many years. The next question was, how long is a countdown video? Okay, I'll get into that later. Okay. Don't worry about that right now. We'll fix that in a minute. Okay, so let's go back now and keep adjusting our music because that's really all we're doing here with maybe some other minor adjustments to some of the audio for Caleb and the Nats. All right, so now we're going to pretty much leave this music. Hang on one second, Rachel. We're going to leave this music low for the majority of the piece. Okay, we're going to leave it low during the first two sound bites, but we are going to break it up. We're going to bring it louder here when we cut to this shot of Caleb with these girls at the computer. Right, so that first part is up at 0 dB. It's up full, you know, meaning 100%. Right, we don't adjust it, and then we drop it down to about -15. And that seems to be a pretty good level that does not compete with Caleb when he's talking. So now we're going to leave that audio pretty low. Okay.
All I want to do is get it with the voice. As a freshman, when I came into high school, I knew how to do nothing. All I knew was like pick up a camera, go shoot something, and have fun with it.
Do they still have to capture more B-roll, or they have enough?
And as the years went on, I got.
So you can also see that you want to keep that music down when you do the nat sound of the teacher here, right? Right? We have her here loud, so we want to make sure that stays low through that.
Fun with it.
Do they still have to capture more B-roll, or they have enough?
And as the years went on, I got to come in the studio, use some of the TV stuff we have. We got to use the digital cameras. We actually got to use mixers, audio boards, and stuff like that. And that actually deepened my interest in television. And then it just kept on building.
Okay, so right here, where we go to the Caleb and the girls, we're going to bring that music up and drop it down again. So now what we're going to do right here, folks, this is after, let me make sure everybody knows where we're at. This is after SOTS, Caleb's second SOT, right? This is that long one that we covered with a few shots. Okay, and in terms of the timeline, we're right around 30 seconds, okay? And it's right here where there's a gap before he starts talking again, right? So he finishes the end of his second side.
Television, and then it just kept on building. In today's world.
And then before he starts talking in today's world, but you see him with these girls, and then we go back to the computer shot. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. And here I'll go back to the keyframes. Okay. So now in this gap right here, right, which is between SOT 2 and the last SOT, which really we hardly show him, right? This is technically SOT 3, and you have this gap. So basically, in place of this gap, you're going to add, technically we're going to add 4 keyframes. Okay, and I'm going to use keyframes here to exemplify that. So we're going to bring it up here, keep it up for a couple of seconds, and then drop it again. Okay, so here's the cut point, right, where the shot happens. So we kind of measure from the left and to the right. We sort of use that cut point as the center point between the two keyframes, right? That's like our reference, Okay, so we go back. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit to the left. I'm going to add a keyframe here. I'm going to add another keyframe here to the right. And then before I do any adjustments, I'm going to do the same thing here. All right, and I'm going to use this as a cut point where he starts talking again right here. This is where he starts talking again.
In today's world.
In today's world, right?
In today's world.
Okay, so using that as a reference, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add 2 more keyframes here. 1 and 2. Okay, I just kind of eyeball. And then in the center here, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 keyframes. Now I push up the center of it. And I'm going to go back up to maybe not 0, but about like -2.5, 2 dB. So it gets a little louder, but then it's going to drop again. And here's what that sounds like. Right, let's go back. Let's back up a little bit to part of SOT 2 so we can kind of play into it.
My interest in television, and then it just kept on building. In today's world, I mean, technology.
Okay, so that's an example of like a little swell, right? SWELL, like a swell, like it goes vroom, and then it just drops, and it just fills that hole where we're not hearing anybody talking. We don't have any significant sound coming from any of the action. So it gives us a little punctuation point, a little rhythm, a little nuance, and you know, we get to take advantage of some music, but like for 2 seconds. Okay, so
Professor,
hang on 1 second there, Rachel. So there, basically, you can see you had 4 keyframes. You have 2 on the left and 2 on the right, and they just serve as a lever, right? They just serve as a lever, and then that middle part, you push it up or push it down. And when you push it up, it goes up, and then it automatically drops because you have those 2 keyframes on each side. And it only raises the middle part between those inner keyframes. Okay? So try that. See if you can get that to work. Again, get as close as you can. You can always refine this, you know, after class before you turn it in, but that's the technique. Okay, so that's giving you that little pulse there.
Interest in television, and then it just kept on building. In today's world, I mean, technologies.
And then he keeps talking, right? Okay. So now, one of the last things we're going to do, I'll give everybody a second to tweak that. And again, if you want it, you can try to do that with the razor blade, but it's going to be a little more work because you're going to have to like cut it a couple times. I mean, you can cut it in each point and then just raise that middle part and throw it dissolve in there. So you could do that. Okay. For me, the keyframe is kind of more intuitive because I'm already in there and I don't have to like go and grab a blade. And if it's linked to video, I don't like to have my video cut if the audio is cut, even though it may not make any material change to the video. I just don't like it. So again, it's a matter of preference, and it depends on which technique feels easier for you or smoother. Everybody gravitates to different things. I just like to show you those options. Okay. Okay, so we've got that. Now we pretty much are going back here to the end of SOT 3, where we have another sort of gap here where you see these students walking. And then we're going to raise the music up again because there's really no significant audio that they're saying here, but I just kind of want to give it a breath. And so part of this is also just not to have someone just constantly talking, right? You have someone say something, an interview, and then in the beginning, we have Caleb say something. Then we go to the teacher saying, you know, do they have enough B-roll, blah, 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 bring it under. Then Caleb talks again. And then he talks again on the next one, but then we break that up so we get a little bit of a breather. It's a matter of rhythm and pacing. And we bring the music up, right? And then he talks again. And so now he's finishing that third SOT, and he's going to say his very last thing. So we're going to give it another beat with a little music and then bring it down. Okay? So a lot of it has to do with pacing. Okay.
Technologies expanded.
Okay. Careful, folks. I think somebody might have their mic open. Okay. All right. So here.
Internet, gonna be on the internet. What I
See, so we don't really hear them talking or anything right here. So this is the hole we're going to fill just like we did in the previous hole where he's with the girls. So same thing. In fact, why don't we do it the other way? We'll go ahead and do the cut, right? He's finishing talking here. We'll use that technique with the razor blade. Okay. If you want to do keyframes, that's fine, but I'm going to use the razor blade to show a little bit of a different approach. I'm going to cut it here. And here he starts talking again, right? Careful not to keep clicking if you're in the razor blade, but I'm just gonna, you can come up here to the ruler and your pointer will go back to the selection tool. But if you're in here and you click, you're gonna stay in that tool, so be careful. So I'm going to play here,
What I do is the
right? So he's starting to talk right here.
what I do.
What I do, right? So I'm going to cut right there on the audio. I'm going to go back and select my selection tool. And then in that little section, I'm going to position my playhead in that center, right? So I did the cut and I'm going to go into the center in between those cuts and I'm going to push that music up again, just like I did on the previous side, right? And now I'm going to add an audio transition here and an audio transition here at the cut point. Okay, and that's sitting right here. Boom. Drag it down, drag it over here, drag it down. And so that's going to give me that keyframe effect as well. Right? We're going to come out of this last SOT.
Pretty much everything's going to be on the internet. What I do is the team effort.
Okay, so it comes right up as soon as he's done, it kind of pops a little bit.
News, pretty much everything's going to be on the internet. What I do is the team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
Okay, and so you can see that the music naturally ends while he's talking here. And then we're left with this student talking here at the end. So I'll let you go ahead and do this part for a minute. Okay.
Internet. What I do is the team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
Okay. So you get that boosted up, and you can see it just by looking at it. You can see the line a little higher, and you can see the audio transitions giving you that smooth transition up and then back down again. And then really here, what we want to do is after he's done talking, just go ahead and bring up the rest of the audio and he'll start talking and you just keep it up and then we'll fade to black. Okay. So here, however you want to do it, you want to cut it and do a transition or you want to add a couple keyframes. I'm going to do a couple keyframes here. And this is on the natural sound clip, right? Group walk long. And the audio, right? So I'm just going to keyframe that audio since Caleb is finished talking right here.
At the same time.
Same time.
I'm out on top at the same time.
Right? So boom, I'll add a keyframe here. I'll add a keyframe here. And then I'll boost this up like 0 dB, maybe a little bit more, right? And then you'll hear that student talking as they walk off.
At the same time.
My backyard ends and the county connector starts. Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Okay. So that's how that should end. Let me go back. Okay, so let me just kind of magnify this last little section. Okay. And that's how that should work. You come out of the SOT3, right?
Everything's going to be on the internet. What I do is the team effort, and I want all of us to come out on top at the same time.
My backyard ends and the county connector starts. Yeah, it's
And if you're wondering what's the distance between where Caleb talks here and the end of SOT 3, right here I think I moved him back by, let's see, we're going to measure that right now to give you a better measurement. So the distance there is 2 seconds. Okay, I marked an in and out here in the ruler in the timeline, but I can measure it here. So this hole right here, after SOT 3 and what is technically SOT number 4, but we separated the picture, is 2 seconds, which means this little musical swell is about a 2-second swell, and then it goes down. Then it stays down, then naturally fades out. And then at the end of Caleb, we bring up the audio for this track. Okay, I'm going to clear these in and outs. So get that end part together, right? And then after he stops talking, then you bring up the audio over here again on the group walk shot, right? So you can hear that one student talking. Add 2 keyframes, go past that second keyframe and push up the audio. Right, I'm going up to about like 2 dB, 2 or 3 dB, so you can hear them pretty good.
I want us to come out on top at the same time.
my backyard ends and the county
Okay. All right. So that's that. So now all we want to do is really just kind of fade to black. Okay. I was going to have you add a title, but I'm not going to worry about it because I want to get to some other stuff tonight that I really want to cover. All right. And so basically, as they're walking to the end, we're just going to add some black here and just dissolve the black, and then we'll also fade out the music, the audio along with the picture. But let's do the video first, right? So go ahead and create some black, right? And as you may remember, you can simply go into your project panel, right? And you can right click and do new item and select black video, right? Boom. Yep, say okay. It gives you black video. Grab it, drop it down, and just butt it right up against that last piece of video. Okay? And it's going to cut to black, and then just add a dissolve right here. Right, so go back to effects. And let me go to video transitions now, right? And we go to dissolve and get a cross dissolve. And then we're going to put it right here. Okay. And it's probably going to give you a end at the cut because there's not much more video of them walking. So it's going to tend to pull the black over this way. So if it looks like this, don't worry about it. That's fine. See, nice and clean, goes to black. And then do the same thing using one of the using the audio audio crossfade for the audio. If you want to do keyframes here, you can, but you know what? It's the very end. I would just go with a crossfade on your audio transitions. Constant power and just boom, right there. See, and it fades out nice and smooth. And it goes to black. And you don't really need 5 seconds of black. You can trim the black back to about halfway, about 2 seconds. Just so you have a little bit of black. Right, you want it to fade all the way out to black. Okay. So you've got that music up here. You're keeping the audio low on the B-roll shot so you can hear Caleb. And then as soon as he's done, you're bringing up the natural sound of the kids talking, and you keep that up, and then you just fade everything out.